Hey friends, welcome back to Crime Adjacent Season 8, the case of the Michigan Nightstalker. Here's where things stand. Realtor Bill Coffey was excited that Sunday afternoon, September 29th, 2024. He hadn't hosted an open house in years, but the idea struck him suddenly that morning. He could do something. He should do something. For all of his realtors. For the whole town, really. It was under attack and they needed him. But an open house? To Bill, it made sense. You see, Bill, age 63, woke up that morning, Sunday, feeling all sorts of things, but mostly, from accounts of all the friends he called, he was feeling some type of, not vengeance, that's not the right word, but responsibility. One of his realtors, Yuki Sugita, had been killed in Traverse City just weeks ago. Then, literally just the day before, Saturday, Allison Barnes had been killed in one of his company's listings on Clinton Street in downtown Petoskey. Another, Ebony Astor, was attacked just minutes later over on Lake Street. And then, that very morning, Sunday, yet another of his realtors, Joanne McElhaney, had been murdered on Walloon Lake. His company, his employees, this whole town was under attack. And here's Bill, owner of Coffey Realty Company with his wife Eileen, just hanging out, watching, sitting on the sidelines while all his realtors were quite literally dying. He needed to do something, and he knew exactly what that was. He'd sell that house on Clinton Street, today, Sunday, on the spot, at an open house, for Allison, for all his employees who looked to him for guidance, for the whole town, which was freaking out by this point. He'd show them all that he's not afraid, that no one should be. Bill Coffey didn't know it at the time, couldn't know it at the time, but this would be his last open house. Here's the story. But first, hey, fun news, friends. We're taking this show on the road. Crime Adjacent will host live shows all across the country to discuss some of the wilder cases we've ever encountered. Pop on over to the Patreon page, patreon.com/crimeadjacent, to keep up to date and hear behind-the-scenes details. I can't wait to see you in person. From San Francisco, this is Crime Adjacent, the never-ending true crime story told weekly. I'm Chase Patrick. Bill Coffey was born on Walloon Lake and knew the place well, better than anyone. When he was younger, he wanted nothing more than to get away, to head to Chicago or New York and work in finance, to become a titan of industry. He loved the lake and the rural feel and lake country vibes of northern Michigan, but even as a child, he picked up on these subtle differences in the air. There were locals, townies, who fished and boated, and then there were the out-of-towners, the rich folks who crowded into Harbor Springs and Petoskey and Walloon for a few weeks each summer. They were all from New York or Chicago, and they just exuded money. Bill wanted that. He yearned for it, like an ache. He wanted to live amongst the vacationing leisure class with their boats and bow ties and their pastel summer outfits and ice cream cones and fudge shops. He wanted it all, even from a young age. The first time he ever left Walloon was when he went to school at the University of Michigan. This is where he met a woman named Eileen, whose father, also a Bill, owned a realty company in Traverse City. Bill and Eileen had a lot in common, except for one thing. Bill wanted to go to New York. Eileen wanted to return home to take over the realty company. They were both driven and eager and hardworking, and although they were also smitten with each other, they agreed on a lot of things early on in this relationship. A lot of things that would shape the trajectory of their lives. One, they'd stay in a relationship, but they'd see other people, but only for sex. So Bill went off to Chicago, Eileen returned home to Traverse City. They were long distance and committed to each other, but they each experimented. Eileen, in an interview for this show, was quite open about it. We liked each other, she said. We were soulmates, but also, we just really liked human bodies and the feel of them and connection. Things didn't work out for Bill in Chicago. He just didn't have that big city feel in him. The quiet charm of Walloon and Petoskey called to him, and he couldn't stay away from Eileen. They really did love each other more than anyone. So Bill moves home, joins Eileen at the realty company, and Eileen's parents, Bill and, I kid you not, Eileen, died just weeks later in a boating accident. A drunken weekend rental boat driver plowed into the boat and killed everyone instantly. So Bill and Eileen, the younger pair, are married at this point, and they take over the realty company. And they're quite good at it. It's just the two of them, and they re-engineer the whole outlook of the place. Whereas Eileen's dad targeted locals, Bill and Eileen targeted all those well-heeled summer visitors from New York and Chicago and beyond. And soon enough, they started hiring other realtors to handle the listings. Then they opened other offices: Petoskey, Harbor Springs. By 2024, they have 5 offices and 30 realtors and listings across the entire sweep of northern Michigan. They also have a reputation. For Bill and Eileen, their open relationship had quite literally never been a big deal. They worked it out early, back in college. They communicated constantly. They loved each other deeply. They both just also loved sex with other people, whenever they felt like it. I'm not trying to be scandalous. It comes into the equation later in this case. The whole town knew and talked about it and gossiped, and Eileen was quite open about it, as was Bill. For the town, it was sort of creepy and weird, but for Eileen and Bill, it was just not a thing. I honestly don't even know how to talk about it or feel about it, and feel almost embarrassed even talking about it. But I'll let Eileen speak for herself here. I interviewed her later about everything. We like to have sex. Sue us. People are uncomfortable with that, I think, especially when women really lean into their sexual energy. They expected it from Bill, I think, but not me. But you know what? Bill and I, we were happy. Eileen said she knew about Bill's affair with Allison Barnes. Affair seems like a weird word given their openness about it. But yes, Eileen said she was aware and only angry that it was an employee. That raised legal issues, and they were supposed to shy away from that. That was their agreement. But Allison's husband, however, was not privy to this information. It was a surprise to him. Yes, he knew about Bill and Eileen's relationship status. Everyone did in town. But he told Sheriff Press in his interviews that he had no idea his wife, Allison, had been looped into this relationship. That was news to him. We'll get back to that. So remember, this house on Clinton Street was Allison Barnes' first big listing. She planned to sell it that very day, just yesterday, Saturday. Instead, she was murdered in that very kitchen. Which is why Bill Coffey felt so bad that morning. Which is why he had the bright idea to go open the house that day. For Allison, he said. Bill told Eileen that he would give all the commission to Allison's family. Look, humans are weird. We do weird things for weird reasons, and this just felt right to Bill, he said. He couldn't do much, but he could do this. And the thing is, he gets to the house, and he finds himself growing more and more excited. With so many agents and offices, he hadn't hosted an open house in years. He had long since moved on to desk work, basically, working on bigger deals and bigger plans for the office. In fact, he and Eileen were more than ready to call it quits, to sell the office and move on. It was retirement time. Bill wanted to stick around Walloon, while Eileen wanted to hit Florida, get out of town, go somewhere warmer and sunnier. An open marriage never caused much conflict, but what to do with the real estate empire they had built was definitely something that was coming between them. That would all be solved that very afternoon. Because Bill gets to the house on Clinton Street at 10 a.m. or just a little bit after. He has all of Allison's leaflets and sign-in books and information about the house. He also has cleaning supplies because, well, it was just yesterday when she was killed in the house. Bill frowns. He wonders how he'll explain this. But then he shrugs. He thinks, I've had more difficult sales over the years. So he turns to his job of getting this place ready for an open house, and he finds himself more and more energized and excited. He was genuinely looking forward to visitors and gabbing and doing that sort of soft press sales pitch he had perfected over the years. He was good at it, the best, he didn't mind saying. So it's getting closer and closer to noon by this point, when he will unlock the doors and let people in and sell this place by the end of the day, for Allison. Yes, he's aware of all the break-ins. He's aware of the murders. Just that morning, in fact, he learned that another realtor, Joanne McElhaney, had been killed out on the lake. But he also knows by now that Roger Michaels has also been killed. And he knows that Tim Meeks has been arrested for all of it, for everything, the break-ins, the murders now that Michaels was dead. The coast was clear, Bill thought, and he hoped venturing out like this would prove it. So around noon, or a little before, he's on the phone with Eileen, talking about all this stuff while he's getting the house ready. Eileen is saying she wants to get out of town. Bill is saying no way, he's not scared of anything. Eileen relays all this stuff to Sheriff Press just hours later, and it's become part of the official reports about Bill's movements that day. I know what you're thinking. And Sheriff Press was too. She checked exactly where Eileen's cell phone was at this point during those calls that morning, because she was the last person to speak with Bill. Eileen's phone and all witness statements put her at the Bear River Country Club that morning. They have a room there and she stays in it from time to time, and she wanted to be there in the big old club with people and workers and guests because she didn't want to be alone that week, not with so many break-ins and murders. So anyway, they're on the phone, and Bill says, hang on, the first visitor is there, early. It's 11:50 a.m. Eileen is sure of it, she tells Sheriff Press, because the house is supposed to be open at noon. But Bill is excited. He tells Eileen he's got to go, and she tried to say something, but he just hangs up. He's gone. Eileen can only guess what happens next. She has seen it a million times over their years working together. Bill looks around, makes sure the house is in order, then he buttons his shirt, straightens his tie, slicks back his hair, which is silver by now, but still full. He's always been quite the catch. Then, he goes to the door with that beaming, welcoming smile of his, and he opens it. He must have been shocked, because it wasn't just a random visitor. It was the person who would push him back into the house, quickly, forcefully, so no one else would see, and then shut the door behind them before plunging an 8-inch chef's knife into the middle of his chest. It was all over within seconds. Bill Coffey died in the foyer that morning. The how was apparent. He was stabbed quickly, once. It pierced his aorta, and he was dead within seconds. The why and the who, however, was a tougher question. Because if Michaels was dead, and if Meeks was in jail by this point, who else could be responsible? Next time on Crime Adjacent. At the Clinton Street house, as forensic technicians scoured the house and poked over Bill's body to find any trace of evidence to nail his killer, Sheriff Press stood on the porch and gazed upon her town, Petoskey. She could see the bay in the distance, the steeples of the local churches, the town clock tower, all of it. Deputy Swanson had just been released from the hospital. She joined us, watching people gather on the sidewalk. News vans were crammed chock-a-block down the street. Reporters demanded answers, shouting their questions up to Press and Swanson. Petoskey had seen 2 murders just the day before, and then another 2 that very morning. People wanted to know who was responsible, who was behind everything. We'd find out that very night. If you're enjoying this show, don't forget to let me know what you think with a like and a review on your favorite listening app. I love to hear from you. From San Francisco, this is Chase Patrick with a reminder, it's not crime, it's crime adjacent. I'll see you next week.